who's very successful in her own right. Marcia Franklin is going to moderate our panel today. She's the producer and host for Dialogue, as well as for Outdoor Idaho. She's produced a number of documentaries, as well as pieces for national public TV programs. And in her spare time, she likes to read and hike and travel. Marcia, why don't you tell us about our panel?
Thanks so much, Tracy. I'm super pleased to be here. Last year I was here as a reporter covering the conference, and I have to say, had really inspirational moments as I talked to the young people who were given scholarships to be here, the next generation, who I see right here. So pleased to have you here, because that's what's really about, is that transference of information. And I was motivated interviewing several of you last year. So I look forward to hearing your questions, because I really think, and I'm sure my panelists agree, that that's going to be one of the most important parts of this. Now, I don't know, is Carla Harris in the room? Carla, are you here? Well, she's not here yet. I'm sure she's being buttonholed by folks. But Carla and I actually went to college together. And I haven't seen her in, well, we won't say the year, but it's been a while. So now I know she's somewhere in that network, and have already Facebooked that for our college class. So that was a wonderful, wonderful talk, and I learned from it, and I know I'm going to learn today. We have three fabulous individuals here to talk about their definition of success and take your questions. First is Tami Longaberger. She's chair of the board of the Longaberger Company, which was founded in 1973 by her father and is headquartered in Ohio. For 5 generations, the Longaberger family has been making handcrafted baskets. And that's what the company does. In fact, its headquarters, I don't know if it's still, it is a basket. You can look that up online, very unique. Employs about 1,000 people and sells a variety of other home products as well, using tens of thousands of independent consultants around the country to market those products. Tami is also a member of the board of directors of CVSL, Inc., which is a publicly traded company that now includes Longaberger and 6 other businesses that are involved in the direct selling industry. In addition to her business activities, Tami is a philanthropist. She's president of the Longaberger Foundation, and the company itself has raised more than $17 million for breast cancer education and research. She's the past chair of the National Women's Business Council, and the current chair, and this is very interesting to me having traveled in the Middle East, the current chair of the Arab Women's Leadership Institute. She serves as a member of the board of directors of the International Republican Institute. In 2010, Longaberger published a book about her life called Weaving Dreams, The Joy of Work, The Love of Life. She received her degree in business administration from Ohio State University and is proud to be a former chair of the board of that university. Also joining us is somebody that you may be familiar with if you have sat in on a lot of the meetings that are directing healthcare policy in our state. Zelda Geyer-Sylvia has been president and CEO of Blue Cross of Idaho since December 2006. Now, Blue Cross of Idaho is the state's oldest health insurer, and about 1/4 of the state's population is enrolled in its plans, including me, I need to say, full disclosure. I have my health insurance through Blue Cross. It also employs about 1,000 people. It's headquartered in Meridian. Now, prior to joining Blue Cross, Zelda was the chief executive officer at MCare, a 200,000 member not-for-profit managed care company owned by the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. She's also been an executive with Kaiser Permanente in New York and Community Health Plan in New York, Massachusetts, and Vermont. As I said, she's been actively involved in helping shape health policy in our state. She's served on the Health Quality Planning Commission, the State Health Exchange Board, and the board of the Idaho Health Data Exchange. And as a reporter, I can tell you how contentious some of these issues get. So she's certainly seen a lot of important trends in our state. She received her master's in public health from Yale University and her bachelor's of arts from Middlebury College in Vermont. Next is Teresa Carlson. Teresa has been vice president of Amazon Web Services Worldwide Public Sector since December 2010. And I had to do a little bit of research myself in understanding her field. It's very new, very interesting, very new. In her role, she's in charge of Amazon's efforts to bring transformational change to governmental and nonprofit entities who are needing to get their massive data into cloud computing and big data services. So for instance, Amazon's public sector unit created GovCloud. These are data centers that are only available to government agencies and contractors. It's also storing 200 terabytes of data for something called the 1,000 Genomes Project of the National Institutes of Health. That is the equivalent of about 16 million file cabinets full of information. So then that data is then shared with individuals and researchers and other agencies. Teresa is also was vice chairwoman of the Tech Americas Foundation's Big Data Commission. Big report coming out of that group. Before joining Amazon, Carlson was vice president of federal government business at Microsoft. She's been recognized for her work numerous times, including being one of only 2 people in 2013 to win the Federal Eagle Award, which honors contributions to the government in information technology. She's also very involved in philanthropy, including service on the boards of Tech America, the American Red Cross, and the Board of Visitors for Virginia Commonwealth University. She has both her undergraduate degree and a Master's of Science in Communications in Speech and Language Pathology, clearly I don't, from Western Kentucky University. So you can see that all of our panelists today are accomplished. By our definition, they're accomplished. But what does it mean to them to be successful? So this is just going to be a conversation. And at a certain point, I really would like to bring all of you in to ask questions or to share your observations on what success means to you. I'll just open it up by asking, when you were growing up, was this idea of success even part of your framework, aiming for success? Because I can tell you that in mine it was, my parents always just said, we want you to be happy. But there wasn't any, you must be this, or this is what necessarily what success looks like. So I'm very curious to hear from you. Tami?
An interesting question. I think 10 or 15 years ago, I would have answered it very differently, and I would have said, oh yes, I've always been driven for success. But I think over the last couple of years, after you turn 50, you start looking at things a little differently, and things get maybe a little more honest and a little more real. And when I think about it, I think what I was driven by when I was a young child was the sense of accomplishment. I wanted to accomplish something. Why did I want to do that? I wanted the attention of my parents. And that's the truth. We all want that praise from our parents, and I guess that the lack that you have drives you. And in the end, that lack that you have becomes really a driver in your life. And I suppose that could be good or bad. But I think in my case, I was able to harness that and make it work for good.
We'll expand just briefly a little bit on that, because I was looking through the names of the chapters of your book, and one of them had to do with going to college even though my dad didn't want me to. Is that correct?
Oh, it's why I went.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about how you grew up.
Well, I grew up in a very small town, population of about 1,200 people. It was not a town, it was a village. No traffic lights, no nothing, but grew up very safe, very comfortable, and you just got through life, I guess, and high school sports were everything, and that was what the value system was where I grew up. My father had this burgeoning business called this basket business, but he put me to work when I was 14 in his grocery store. It was just the way it was. It was not volunteer. Those of you who are a part of family businesses, you're drafted. It's not an option. So that was immediately something I didn't, you just do anyway. I was the first in my family to go to college. When I was accepted to college, I applied to one place. It was open admissions. All worked out for me at Ohio State. It's not open admissions anymore, but thank goodness it was at the time. And he said, you don't want to go to college, basically, I can teach you everything you need to know. And in his world, that's absolutely true. But I suppose you get to that point when you're 17 and you decide that you're going to start doing some things the way you want to do them. And so I was determined to go to college, and fortunately for me, to go to a big public institution. There were 68,000 students on campus when I arrived in Columbus, Ohio, and the world came to me. And I think that was such an important part of my education, simply by sheer luck, and because I didn't know any better and I had no one to advise me about what college to go to, I ended up at a big public. And for me, that was the best place in the world for me to be, because all of a sudden I was on campus, probably like many of you, and all of a sudden I saw people of a variety of differences. I heard 100 different languages being spoken on campus. I was exposed to classes. You have this big, at the time, a big thick book, and I was like, well, what do you want to take? Well, I don't know. I can take anything in this book? Yeah, whatever you want. So I was overwhelmed with choices and overwhelmed with, I guess, the realization that the world is a very big place and there's much to explore.
Very, very interesting. So you had a grain of an idea of success that was different than your father's, but then you still ended up working with the company.
Oh, yeah, I need years of therapy.
I mean, you came back home. That's important. So,
yes, I did.
Yeah. Zelda, tell us a little bit about your growing up and whether this idea of the importance of success, or how it was defined, was in your life.
Before I do that, I actually would like to do one thing, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I think that the topic of success is very important, and I think that to be successful, you need to help other people be successful around you. And I wanted to just recognize there are some Blue Cross ladies here who are really enjoying the conference. And could you kind of stand up and could everybody give them a hand? Because any success that I have is only dependent on how well they do. So please give them a hand. So thank you, and thank you for being here. I grew up in a very different way. My parents and my dad, particularly, his definition of success is you have to get a good education. Education was very important to my family, and so their whole view was, if you get a good education, good things will happen after that. And so I kind of tried to do that, and I grew up in a city, actually, and but I was really tired of being in the city. It was right around the time of Martin Luther King and all of the issues around race relations and those kinds of things. And so I decided that I really wanted to get away from that, and I wanted to go as far away as possible. So I went to a very rural Vermont college that only had about 1,500 students there, and I thought I was a diversity candidate because I had black hair. So you can tell what it was really like. I was really very supported, and what I kind of was looking for was really, how can I make a difference? Because my dad actually had been in the field of public health for many, many years, and he was really involved in the first no smoking campaign. And I kind of watched him as he kind of worked towards getting people to stop smoking after being a pack-a-day kind of guy. And he stopped himself, and then he actually worked towards getting other people to stop smoking. And I thought that was pretty cool. And so I really wanted to make a difference in people's lives. And I think that's how I kind of really kind of took some of the next steps.
Great. And Tami, tell us a little bit about your childhood, this notion of success.
Well, I laugh a little bit because Tami and I, our backgrounds are a little bit similar. I don't even know if there were 1,200 people in the town I grew up in. I'm from a very small town, Nancy, Kentucky, and there's a sports thing. My father was a high school basketball coach, both my parents were teachers. And the thing that back then, I look back, it's very interesting. I'm very competitive. And I think back then when I thought of success, I wanted to be the captain of the cheerleading squad, which I achieved, but because there was no other sports for women, there was no sports back then. I mean, again, I graduated with 52 people. Basketball was the only sports. My sister had kept the scorebook. My brother was a player. The whole family was involved in this, and we loved it. It's like Tammy said, it was sort of a core. It brought the core of the community really together. And I think this change, I think success changes over the years. I feel so blessed because I had parents that were so involved in the church, in the community, in politics. We were doing the local campaigns, knocking on the doors, really being a civic advocate for your community. And I just think I feel so blessed when I look back that I had the sort of, even in a very small town, that full experience. And I remember, I think today, I don't have a fear of talking with anyone. And I think that's because I was sort of thrown out there early to do things with the church, do things with the community. And I think it sort of just pushes you out there because you learn to care for the elderly, take care of your neighbor, or just, get around the community. And I think there's a lot to be said for communities and working within a community for both young children and as you grow up as an adult. But success, it's changed over the years, and I sort of pinch myself today because the experiences that I've had are way beyond my wildest dreams from a little girl in a very small town. But I think that is because there's a variety of reasons, which I think we'll get into, that you probably see themes of doing things well, success. Mm-hmm. But in terms of just my background of the influences, it's really sort of that simple, if that makes sense. And I did go to college and went to a state college, and doing something completely different today than I started out in.
Because you actually started out in healthcare as well, didn't you?
For many years, which I'm still a big fan. We were chatting about that, so.
Well, let's talk more about how that definition of success has changed. For you, it was initially, I want to be captain of the cheerleading team. You want to make a difference. Maybe that's still part of your definition of success, and you wanted to broaden your horizons, it sounds like. Tell me, once you got into the work sphere, whether your definition of success changed. Did it become more about metrics or data, as Carla was talking about, accomplishments, revenue, or did it still stay integral to the values you just talked about?
Well, full disclosure, other than some jobs in college, I've worked one place my entire life. For 33 years, I've worked at the Longaberger Company. It's interesting if you work in a family business and you make it your career, success is sometimes in doubt, even when the company is successful, because you're not sure if you're there because you really deserve to be there, or if you're there because your name's on the sign. And so you struggle with that. I mean, I wouldn't have said this years ago, but when you reflect on decades of being there, these things become more obvious. And so you spend a lot of time trying, I think as much as anything, and I think women in general do this, we try to prove to ourselves that we deserve to be there. And sometimes I guess I should just speak about me. Sometimes I was my own worst enemy that way, because the struggle was within, not with other people and me being able to do my job. I think it was after my father passed away, which was 15 years ago, I started to exhale a little bit. I'm in the middle of all of this. I went through, my personal life and trying to balance my life with my children. I have 2 children, a son and a daughter. My daughter works for me now at a company. So I push a lot of things on her now. Now she'll be, hopefully not do the same thing, go through the same thing I went through. But you're raising children at the same time. You're trying to get to the soccer game or get to the baseball game, do those things. So success was, for me, the measurement of the success of the company. And that continues to be an easy measure. But as my children started to get older, I started to look at other measures for success. And certainly you want to take care of your children, you want to do the right thing, you want them to grow up and be as adjusted citizens, contributing to the world and contributing to their own lives. At least that's my point of view, as best they can, but it's their own life and they have to live their own life and you have to let go. Or they'll fight you. It's just as teenagers, so just let them go. It's easier. But either way, it's going to happen, so it's your choice how much you want to suffer. But it's true. Wasn't meant to be funny. I started looking at contributions I wanted to make to the world and that I wanted to continue to develop in my life. And I knew in order to quiet that doubt about my ability within the company, I started to look outside the company to get involved more in the community, to get involved in current affairs, to get involved in, in some ways, organizations that made a difference in society. And from there, I had the privilege of getting involved and meeting people like Ambassador Bonnie McElveen-Hunter, who we became dear friends, and through her, Teresa Carlson. And as you start broadening a network of women who are similar to you that you may or may not have within your own community. And I started realizing that a big part of my success was to be able to, my definition of success is to make contributions to the community beyond the Longaberger Company, and the path to do that was to meet other women who were interested in similar things that I was. And it's made an enormous difference in my personal life and certainly my satisfaction of making contributions beyond the world of baskets.
And very briefly, when you travel in Jordan or in the Middle East and you talk to women through your position, what is their general definition of success? Is it the same, or are they just trying for basic things that we take for granted?
I give you a little background. I chair institute. It's based in Amman, Jordan. We train and educate women from all around the Middle East, all 19 MENA countries, Middle East, North Africa countries, and we bring them to Amman because that's safest for us, really, to be. And you know what I have found is that women's issues, it's an overused term, but women's issues are all the same. They're all the same around the world. They want their children to have opportunity in life that they didn't have. They complain about their husbands like we complain about our husbands. They are very devoted in their faith and their community and their mosque and their way of life that they value. And I've grown to respect and admire them and their strength so much. Many of the women are far more educated than I am, with doctorate degrees and contributing to their country. But also, I come back and I spend a lot of time with them in their homes, so you really get to know them. And I come back to the United States with an enormous appreciation for the opportunities that we have here. Yes, the issues really are the same, but at the end of the day, those of us who were just blessed to be born in the United States of America can actually do something about it if we have enough drive and enough determination and an ability to look at ourselves. I thought Carla was wonderful this morning. If you can engage some of the things that she shared with you this morning, truly, you are some of the few women in the world that have the opportunity to do what you want to do. and have your really, we talk about a right to self-determination, certainly as countries, but as individuals, you truly can apply if it is to be, it's up to me. And in many parts of the world, women could only hope and dream that they have the opportunity that you all have.
Mm-hmm. Zelda, talk a little bit about, in the workplace, what your definition of success then became as you're, I described your resume as you were working in all these different companies, and how that has perhaps even transformed again.
This may sound counterintuitive, but I actually haven't spent a lot of time thinking about my own success. I think that really more what I've really worked on is what is the success of the companies that I've worked for, the people that I've worked with. And, that has actually served me very well, but it really, I think, has really allowed me to actually be part of a lot of change and a lot of things that have really produced wonderful results for people. Just recently, for example, you all are probably familiar with the Affordable Care Act, and it's been a lot of change, and we've been talking a little bit about how that change is occurring, and really, somebody said to me, well, has this been successful? And, that's an interesting question. But one of the things that really we try to focus on is, yes, it's been successful because there are more people, for example, that now have insurance that is improving their lives, they're getting access to care. If you really focus on the things that are important, I think the definition of success is not as critical. Mm-hmm. It's really, what are you doing, what's happening that's making people better off.
So how do you do that? How do you assess whether you're helping your employees be successful, helping the company's goals be successful? What do you look at to tell yourself, yeah, we are on the right track?
I think that's a really good question. I'm actually about to leave here and go talk to a group of people in my company about that, actually. How do you define success for the company? And I think what we try to focus on is improving people's lives. It all comes down to it. You really want to have a productive life, a positive life, one where you have good health. And if you can focus on some of those core things, then I think that it makes it a lot easier to define what success really is. And so I think that what I try to do is motivate the people that I work with to focus on those things, and all of the rest of it will come along. And I think that it's trying to help people themselves be successful even in our company. So every employee needs to be successful in order for the whole company to be successful. And I think if we kind of continue to focus on that, the rest will come along.
And when you look at employee, what do you mean by they need to be successful? Is it training? Is it metrics? What their output? How do you know whether your employees are happy and successful?
I think that the way that I think they each need to, I think I heard this a little bit from Carla,
Mm-hmm.
each person needs to define that success themselves. And I think that's really important. So success means I've achieved what I set out to do. So whatever that goal is, if you've achieved what you've set out to do, then you're successful. And I think that, to me, it has three dimensions. One is that you're making an impact on others. The second is you achieve what you want to achieve. And the third is that you're happy and content with that. So whatever that is, you need to be happy and content with where you are. For me, for example, I think you talked a little bit about it, being a mom was one of the most important pieces of success for me, and then learning how to let them go and be independent was also important. So I think that, there are all these themes that come through, but I think it's defining it for yourself that's really important.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Teresa, you mentioned there were no sports for girls when you were in high school, and I can identify with that. I mean, Title IX really, it had been passed, but it wasn't implemented when I was in school either. And I think sometimes young women, it's not been that long that we've had these incredible opportunities in athletics for young ladies, and I think that those opportunities have have really changed the way young women work with each other as well. You're now in a field in IT, which is also not necessarily, it's a new field that's not necessarily populated by a lot of women, if I'm not mistaken.
Very
so
few.
groundbreaking in that respect. And you're in a hard driving aspect of that profession, both in Microsoft and Amazon's new services. So some of your definition of success must be a measurement of how well you're doing in terms of revenue and sales.
Yeah.
How do you combine that with your own idea of personal success?
Well, one of the reasons, it's interesting because one of the reasons I think I've always gravitated toward public sector is I don't feel like I'm really balanced out if I'm not sort of both working, sort of the for-profit side of work and the not-for-profit side. I know it sounds a little crazy, but I think maybe that is still a little bit inside me, my upbringing, and I really love the area I'm in. I've done a lot of commercial work, but I really believe there are better ways to do things for government, for education. I'm just so passionate about that. And I see success, another reason I'm at Amazon is, Amazon is totally focused on the customer. I mean, we do things for the customer, and I love that about Amazon. And as a result of that, I get to do these amazing things that are focused in on the customer. And if you always put your customer first, good things happen. If you know that as a leader, you can make good decisions and the proper decisions if you begin with the customer in mind and walk backwards, those things just really, they take shape in different ways. Your thinking is even different. And I think that the business will always profit if your eye is always on the customer. So success for me today is really driven a lot by my customer. And I feel good when my customers feel good. I was at an event all day yesterday where we've done something really transformative in the intelligence community, and I feel good about it. I feel good about the mission. I feel good that we're going to be able to use IT in disruptive ways. I have a team that focuses on Department of Defense, and I am proud, very proud to see some amazing women here from the Department of Defense. Because we're about mission. I got up this morning, and today is 9/11. And I think it's important for us to remember those kind of things. We can't let history slip by us and not take every day to remind ourselves, how do we do things differently? But also empowering people, economic development. And I'm a big advocate for cities. I believe that cities are the next big hub of innovation. And if you think about cities, like cloud computing, I know it sounds a little crazy, but you can start a business now like that. You can go build a business, all the women here in the room, you can build a side business, you can do your own business. I love that you can start a business. And you can do it very rapidly, you can try things out, fail fast. So I think for women too, it's very empowering to be able to try things and do things on your time. So when you sort of ask the question, can you have it all, you have to make choices. But I think through information technology, which what I do, I think it's just very empowering today because it's changing and evolving. And the groups I work with, are the public sector groups, but many women gravitate toward public sector. And I think that's the love of mission. And again, for me, success is that balance. And I'm like, I love to see my team being successful. I think I'm the happiest when my team is doing good things. Like, I want to celebrate their successes. My successes, I've had my successes. And of course, I'm very competitive. So, I'm always looking, what should we be doing differently? But I think, it's changed, and I laugh because Tami said Bonnie, like we call it FOB, Friends of Bonnie. Because for those of you, you'll get to hear from Bonnie later today, but let me just tell you, this woman is a connector. She connects the world together. She's created and facilitated women all around the world to do amazing things. And I think there's an old saying, I don't know, how many of you, do you remember Stephen Covey? The people, good. If you don't remember him, you should go back and look. He had these really phenomenal sayings about circle of influence. And I think, looking at what's your circle of influence and how do you, and deposits and withdrawals, there's some really sharpening your saw. He had some of these amazing sayings that, are really sort of tidbits of sayings but are really super meaningful. And I think for women, we can get on board with sort of who's our circle of influence, who do we build into that circle, what's the deposits or withdrawals have we taken, and some individuals you can withdraw a lot and only have to deposit a little, and others you can withdraw a little, but you have to deposit a ton. And you sort of have to think about your relationships like that. And I think in your career, it's the same way. I think Carla had lots of great advice there. But at the end of the day, success it does sort of have to be about what you think it is. It can't be how anyone else defines it for you. You can talk to a lot of people, but at the end of the day, it's like you were saying, it's got to be about what is really you as an individual, and then working toward those goals.
Can I follow up with
absolutely.
something that you said, Teresa, about circle of influence? You think about this, like how can one person, how could you individually make a difference in the world? If each woman in this room, well, men too, you're certainly welcome to this party. If you make a commitment for 30 days, 10 days, whatever works for you, that you're going to help one other woman every day in some way, think of the impact that just the women in this room, if you would do that for 30 days, the impact it would have on other women in your community. I think as women, we need to consciously remind ourselves that we have to help each other.
And we're very social. I mean, women are social. So that's kind of helpful. I think we like to help. We got up on stage, we immediately started talking. I think that helpfulness is, we underestimate that in the network, which we drive to, if you see someone at work that's in need, if you see a neighbor in need, just reaching out, having, words of wisdom, or saying, I noticed this was going on, would you like to talk? And holding those kinds of things in confidence, of course. But I do think what Tami said is really important. Even if one person every day, who are you going to touch? It's a really easy thing to do.
And if any of you want to comment on this, how have men figured into your success, your collaborations with men as well as women? Because I think you've all done a great job of talking about the importance of networking among other women. Yeah.
I think it's a really important question, because I think that, you always are talking about women and how women influence you. I've had a lot of men that have had very positive influences on me in my life. First was my dad. Actually, he said, you can be whatever you want to be. And that was really important to me, that my dad would say that to me. And so I think that was really helpful. I think the second most important person is my husband, actually, who I think has been a huge piece of my success and why I've been able to be here and have a family and do all of those things. I think without him actually being willing to kind of pick up the slack at home, or be a stay-at-home dad, or do whatever he's going to do, it's been really, really important for me. And then I've had men that I've worked for that have said, you can go, girl, you can do this. And I think that it's important for women to do that, but I think that there are also men who have been very willing to actually say, you can be whatever you want to be.
Anyone else want to comment on that?
Well, I'll just say, again, for me, I started off, I talked about my father being a basketball coach, so it was always boys. We had them over at our house for pancake breakfast, and they were all, and they became my best friends. And I noticed when I got into college and I was in a sorority, I was always matchmaking, because I sort of knew the guys' personalities as well as I knew the girls' personalities. I was like, you guys, and in fact, I have like 7 bridesmaid dresses from my sorority sisters that I connected. So I sort of thought maybe I'd missed the boat.
Teresa, can I hire you?
Can I hire you? It may be my next third of my career again, because I really enjoy that. I really enjoy, we're all still together, which is, but the one thing I did want to say is that I think men have been as much of an influence in my career as amazing women. I've had amazing women that I can go to and just ask for advice, because I think feedback is a gift, true feedback, real feedback. And I've had some amazing men that mentored me and let me try things that I was completely not qualified to do in the early days of being in technology. I mean, I had one CEO that would put everything in a triangle. First of all, he hired me, and I had no background in IT, and he saw something in me I did not see in myself. And secondly, he would put everything, when I go to him, I'd say, Don, I don't know how to do this. He would say, sit down, Teresa, and he'd put a triangle. And he would, I was like, how is everything in a triangle with you? But it seemed to make sense to me at the time. So I think, men, and today it's just a matter, I work very, I'm tenacious about doing things like for Girls Who Code and programs to try to bring more women into IT. By the way, for all the young students, the ones that are here, get into technology. It is the best job ever. You won't ever have to look for another job. Your career, your salaries, it is fantastic for women. There's so many jobs out there. It's hard, it's very hard, but it pays off in big ways. But there's not enough women in tech. Yeah.
I agree with the majority of what you said. One additional comment I would make is, Teresa and Zelda both, I mean, there have been so many men that have made a difference in my career. Sometimes they teach me what not to do, and sometimes they teach you what to do. And my only advice would be, when you run across people, men or women, in your life that really aren't there to help you, don't waste your precious life trying to convince them that they should pay attention to you. That we are fixers. Like, what is wrong with us? We can spend lifetimes trying to fix people. And I wish I would have learned it earlier, that that's just not the case. Accept someone for who they are. They're on their own journey, they're on their own path, but you certainly you have the responsibility to take yourself out of a situation that's not going to be helpful or constructive to you.
Actually, could I just add one thing? I've actually in my career had to work a lot with men. I am often the only woman in the room in meetings, and so you can have a couple of different reactions to that. One is you can be intimidated, or the second is that you can just see men as just like you in many ways, and that people are diverse in many ways, and so I think you just have to understand where people are coming from, no matter what shape or size or gender they come in. And if you can do that, I think you can be successful.
Wonderful.
Can I just say one more thing, though? We should not settle. I do want to say, though, there are still not enough women in boardrooms. There are still, so we still, all of us, we should not settle for not having women at the table. So I do want to make that statement. It's just not acceptable. Lots of talent, amazing women, and I think if we all work together on that and continue to bring in these amazing and wonderful women with so much talent and skill, we just need to raise them up, continually raise, and we need to raise each other up. So.
We have time for questions, and we have an incredible resource here in these three individuals. So please come to the various microphones so we can hear from you, or if you want to talk about your own definition of success and how it's changed. Yes?
There we go. Kari from Hewlett-Packard. The thing you've just been talking about, I have more of a tactical question, but in working around in lots of teams with lots of men and women, I've discussed with many women, many men, this kind of cultural phenomenon, and I'm looking for you to see, one, have you experienced the phenomenon, and two, how do you overcome it or how do you work within it? And that is that the behavior barriers, or the edges of behavior are different for men and women. So if you have on one extreme very aggressive and, yelling and screaming, and that's really inappropriate for men or women. And then you have crying and throwing a fit on this extreme. That's very inappropriate for both men and women. But somewhere in the middle, there are these lines, and it seems like in the discussions that we've had that their lines are wider. So they can pound their fist on the table, and that's okay. That's an acceptable behavior if they're making a point. But if a woman were to do that, that would be, you'd probably be coached. And maybe same on the other end, that if a woman looks even slightly emotional, that's inappropriate. So A, is that phenomenon, have you experienced that? And B, how do you overcome that, or how do you work in that space to be successful?
Thank you very much.
You can just say, no, I've never experienced that.
Go ahead. I'll add.
That's a very good question, and I actually have to say, I think that that's still one of the biggest barriers that women have. And I think we have to really force ourselves to overcome that. I do think that there's still the studies that have been done. I think that, what was it, where they, gave a paper and they put a woman's name on it and they gave a man's name on it, and then they surveyed whether or not people liked them or not, and, because they're exactly the same paper. And really what the research shows that in both men and women, they liked the man better than they liked the woman based on the paper that they wrote, which is exactly the same. So I think that's still a huge barrier that we have to overcome. And, my sense is the way to overcome that is you just have to keep at it. You have to say, it's okay to be emotional sometimes if you're a woman, and it's okay to be strong. And you may not always be the most well-liked person in the room, but you got to keep going. And but I hope that someday that when they distribute those papers, that it won't really look like that.
Well, I'll just say really quickly, I think you've got to emulate the behaviors that you think make sense. Because what you talked about are two extremes. And, yeah. What can I say? Yes, those happen. But, if you want real success, you've got to figure out how you emulate the behaviors that you think are the most appropriate. And you find women and men that communicate in a way that's effective. And you take those learnings, and that's how you move forward. And I've done that all my career. Because, look, sometimes you have to be a little noisier. I call myself noisy. And my elbows can be a little sharp sometimes. But I think that if you really are smart in your topic and you know your stuff, then you can debate the issue based on facts, period, and data. So anytime you walk into a meeting, have your facts, have your data. And if you do that, you're going to win every time. So I would just, that's my advice.
Unfortunately, we're starting to run out of time. Question from over here?
I love both of the answers that you just gave to that question. I just wanted to say one thing that we can all do and that we're here doing it is be willing to be who we are, where we are, and then support each other when we might cross over that line rather than just, writing each other off that list. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for putting this conference on. It's fabulous. Thanks.
Last question.
I'm Anlet from HB, and Zelda, my question is for you because your boardroom is in Idaho. So if the country is behind in promoting women, I think Idaho is usually 20 years behind the country. So my question for you is, sitting at the top, do you have women in your boardroom at the top? And if not, is that because there's a lack of talent, or is it is there some norm, again, where there's just a pace gap in getting women to the boardroom?
Well, thank you for that question. That's a great question, and I have to say, I have recently added a woman, or the board that I work for has recently added a woman to the board, and she actually was from HP. And so we're very happy to have her. We still haven't crossed the barrier on percentages, so we're still at about that 20%. And I think we need to actively work to get that percentage up in terms of having women in the boardroom. Again, I think that I'm the first woman CEO that the Blues have had in their 65 or 70-year history. I feel very honored to be in that spot, but we've got to get a lot more women out there, and we've got a lot more women in the boardroom so that they can hire women CEOs, and I think that that's going to be something that we have to really strive to do. So we're doing it at Blue Cross, but I do think that we need to do it across the country. It's very important to get those board seats filled.
Very brief.
Just closing. Oh, just a comment for you to keep in mind. You know, life is a journey. And as we work through some of these challenges we've talked about today, it will go on the rest of our lifetime, but the journey is actually the destination. It's the journey that you have to enjoy and love and learn to appreciate.
Thank you so much. That helps me be successful in wrapping up this panel, and for me, success in this instance is having Barb Morgan happy with me that we got out on time. So thank you so much for listening, and Dr. Janet Callahan is next. I hope you'll is there a short break or not? Just right into the 10 minutes, and I'm hearing from Dr. Adler. Thank you. Thank you so much.